Hi everyone, Kelvin from London. Got some vintage speakers to look at today. Celestion Ditton 33s from, a good range of Celestion speakers, which include the Ditton 44 and the Ditton 66, which is a huge thing. Those are both incredibly highly regarded, particularly the 66s with its huge dome mid-range. But we got these 33s. Now, I got these 33s for a friend of mine. They weren't sounding very good. And, my friend was saying, these don't sound right. Anyway, so what's the problem? We decided to recap these speakers. I reached out to Matt at Haycross Audio, and he said, well, look, put nice capacitors on the top end. That'll be a big payoff, a good result. But you can use bog standard all caps for the rest. Yeah. So I did that. So the top two here are Solon capacitors. You could have done the whole lot in Solon capacitors, but there's like 7 or 8 on there, and it would have cost like half the cost of what these speakers sell for, probably more. So anyway, I took his advice on that, and that really does deliver in the top end, the Solon. But frankly, I'm not saying there's a big difference in the lower end. A little bit more cohesive in the lower end with the ordinary capacitors, but they didn't seem to make much difference, quite frankly, to the originals, which weren't too far out of value. Anyway, let's talk about the sound. Oh, I should say, I'm also going to do a sort of comparison with this Monitor Audio MA4. Really nice speaker, sort of underrated, under the radar, maybe you could say, because it exemplifies the difference between two-ways and three-way speakers, Whenever I see three-way speakers, I always think I should be able to get a good performance out of these somehow. I might tweak it, the amp, the positioning, maybe even mess around with the wadding. Sometimes I do that. I'll talk about that another time. But anyway, it's a good example of what you get from a three-way that you won't get from a two-way and all that stuff. Okay, let's talk about the sound. So first thing I want to say is this is a fantastic tweeter. It's got a mid-range driver, great. What you're going to get is more mid-range detail, bigger, louder, more accessible, So when the difference between something like a tambourine, there's actually a good example. One song I was listening to had a tambourine going on in the left. This tweeter made it sound really as good as any tambourine will ever sound. Now, when you go to this nice, sophisticated, good speaker that is, two-way, that tambourine is there, but it's smaller. Let's say sound-wise, you would call it darker. Yes, it's not so glistening and bright. That tweeter, and I've got to put this down also to the Solon capacitors, that tweeter is just making that tambourine just sound superb. Superb, yes? Now, bass-wise, this speaker, it doesn't deliver as much, I call it bass fun, right? You can tune into the bass, you can follow the bass. The bass is intriguing, it's lucid, it's plumbing depths, it's a subject of interest. That comes out on here better. And on here, this box, closed box, doesn't deliver as much bass interest as you would like, or as you think it might. The box is big enough, it kind of should have more bass interest in it than it does. I mean, what I want to say about these 33s, is that I'm finding myself really enjoying the mid and the top. That's what I'm really getting into. And the fact that it's three-way, you see, what's happening is you're not having to, I call it reach or aching for detail that you know is there. It's giving you all that mid-range detail, big and bold and sweet sounding, courtesy of that tweeter. Here's what it's not giving you, this one. This is not really a sophisticated sort of, I say it hasn't had the love put into it. It hasn't had the real effort. Probably I mean listening tests when it was made, because it doesn't present you a well focused picture. The picture is not, refined, detailed, placement. But it does have all the details. This is the kind of dichotomy I want to make clear. You're getting a lot of information and it sounds nice and it sounds clear. Female vocals sound super duper. Loving the female vocals, loving the harmonies, loving a lot of stuff in the mid-range, guitar sounds, mid and top. But simultaneously, it's not putting it in the right place and keeping it there. You see, kind of in the end, it depends on, what you like, If you're a person that likes the bass guitar or organ music and that kind of structure being sort of dry and clean and accurate, you'd like this better, and you wouldn't like these so much. But what these are going to make sound good are, the voices, the harmonies, the guitars, the cymbals. Just to say things like, when you get a drummer hits the bass drum and the cymbal, that psh, psh, psh thing. Well, you are getting that here. You'll get that low-level hit and sort of fairly tight explosion, which is nice, yeah? And you definitely get that on here. But what you'll get on here really there is a lot more following the bass intrigue, bass, interesting bass that you can follow, and you do follow it on there. And on here, you're getting this beautiful top end. Now, let me say this. I put these speakers mostly on with vintage amps, Sansui and Akai. I think that's what they should be used with. If you get into that higher end where the benefits are the real detailed structure, well, these won't deliver that for you. And I just feel like it's not playing to the strengths of these speakers to put it into higher end gear, which also, everything just gets a little bit tinier. Things can get tiny, and small and detailed and refined. And then you need bigger and better speakers to resolve that information, But these are giving me something in abundance. I say this many times. Give me something in abundance. I can sit back and relax. Might not be everyone, but certainly for me, I've been thoroughly enjoying these speakers. Just thoroughly enjoying them. I actually put it on some Tidal compilation. I just let it play. And every song was interesting, I was just enjoying it all. Simultaneously, I want to make this caveat that it's not refined detail. That's what it's not. But all the details there, it's just a little bit unrefined. I don't want to, I'm sort of drawn to the word splashy, but I feel like that's going to mislead you. It's not coarse, it's the least harsh sounding top end you'll ever get your hands on. But yeah, it's just a little bit It's the positioning. The positioning is not there. The sound stage is not there. I'm going to sneeze. Sorry. This is also a silk dome tweeter, which is you know, curiously similar sounding, I guess. But you know, the mid range on here is smaller. It's just smaller, darker, quieter, probably more accurate. But some sounds on here in the top and the middle are just big and bold. So I'm not like going, where's that detail gone? You know, or where's that bit? It's all there. It's all coming at me in a sweet sounding way, but probably not with as much bass as you might like. Let me add a couple of funny things here. That when you take this bass driver out, you find a big piece of foam really pressed up against it. Yeah, I mean, that's the intention. That was the manufacturer's choice, you know, to the point where it has a sort of little circle where the magnet goes in the back of that. Now, just as a kind of a hunch or an instinct, whatever you want to call it, I never like to see, I prefer to see a lined box, but when the whole box is full of foam, I find that's when you get that little bit like the choked up bass, you know. Now, I did a lot of experiments when I was younger, playing around with the wadding, you know, because that was cheap and easy to do, yes. So I would try taking out wadding, changing it, more wadding, less wadding, all that kind of stuff. And what you find is, if you're only playing at low levels, you could reduce the wadding and you'll get a bit more lucidity. When I say reduce the wadding, I just mean reduce the mass of it. So like I get that piece of foam out and slice it in half, something like that. Or, you know, add another bit, a different bit, but reduce the total amount of it. But this can be okay when you're at low level, and it will actually give you more lucid bass, freer, you know. The other thing I've seen is people getting speakers and packing in loads of wadding till it's like super tight in the whole thing, more wadding than it was intended to have. That can definitely choke the speaker. Effectively, it makes the speaker, it's like the speaker's in a smaller box, yes, because literally it's getting too dense in there. I mean, that's only when people are adding their own acoustic wadding. Maybe it's foam or that kind of, there was a fiberglassy one at one point, and then there's kind of lamb's wool one if you go, you know, back into the late 60s, I guess. So, I mean, I'm just mentioning a little hunch here that I wonder if I might play around with the wadding here, or just change it for looser wadding. I just get the feeling that the bass drive is a little bit too choked. Of course, the downside of reducing your wadding, just so as you know, is, you know, when you're going loud, your box will start vibrating, basically, which is kind of what you're trying to stop. But at low levels, it's okay. But if you go loud, that's when the lack of wadding will reveal itself as a problem. And if you're not going loud, that lack of wadding, you know, might be a benefit. You know, like in an ideal world, you might change the wadding as the speaker gets turned up, which is obviously not possible to do. Anyway, so there we go. Celestion Ditton 33. I'm thoroughly enjoyed these speakers. They put a smile on my face. I enjoyed them. They're not the ultimate speaker, but the tweeter's gorgeous, and the Solon capacitor. I've got to say that is, I think, a part of the what I'm really enjoying listening to is the tweeter and the Solon capacitor. Yeah, and those are a bargain too. These MA4s. These probably actually go for a bit more money than these, but these are real class acts, you know. So, you know. Anyway, that's it. Okay, thanks for watching. Loads more videos on my channel. If you want to look at them, please like and subscribe. Okay, thanks. Bye for now.